Good afternoon, Good Shepherd. It's Wednesday, June 6th. No, it's not. It's Wednesday, June 9th. And some thoughts for today. Zoom is down. We had problems with the Gospel and Grub, and outages have been happening all over the West Coast, west part of the United States, including Denver, which is why I don't have a cool background and you are seeing the back of my office behind me. Um, a couple of things. First is that the vote came in, and again, folks are interested in hearing more about 2 Corinthians. So if you want to check out that passage between now and Sunday, it is 2 Corinthians 5, verses 6 to 17. That will be the focus for Sunday's homily. I'll probably move beyond that as I did last week, but again, that's where the focus will be. Also, this coming Sunday, we will begin a series of what I'm calling Congregational Conversations. We sort of started this last week as we talked about after both the Zoom service and the in-person service. We talked about what are those things that we fear we will lose when we move out of COVID land. And that was a good conversation. I'll return to that in a few moments. But this coming Sunday, actually for the next 2 Sundays, we'll be talking specifically about worship moving forward. And we're going to divide the conversation into 2. This coming Sunday, we're going to talk really about style. And so the questions we'll be addressing are, what did we like or dislike as we experimented with some different worship styles while we've been in COVID land. We have done morning prayer. We've added the sheep count, the morning sheep count, which is an abbreviated morning prayer for those who've participated there. Compline has been added. But again, during even on the morning Zoom worship, we've done Rite 1, Rite 2. It's been morning prayer, but we've also live streamed Eucharist with hardly anybody in the building. So what have we liked or not liked as we've experimented with these kinds of things? And why was that the case for you? And then as part of all of that, the music has been wonderful, what we've been able to provide. How important is music for you in terms of worship as we go ahead? And so that's what we're really going to talk about this coming Sunday. And then the following Sunday, what we'll talk about are questions of scheduling. I'm sure that's going to make everybody sort of sit up and notice as we talk about what that will look like starting in the fall. So that's what we're going to talk about the next 2 Sundays. And then we'll have a couple of other discussions in following Sundays. One on how we enhance or do some community building as we return. And then some questions about Christian education, both for our kids and young people as well as for adults. We've had some schedule conflicts in the past. We want to know whether or not how we might sort of fold all of that into the mix. And all of those conversations will be part of what we'll be using as we discern as a congregation how we'll move forward coming the fall. So that's what's going on in the next little bit. I'd like to talk just a moment. Some things came up in some of the conversations last week that I'd really like to address. And they probably aren't really too surprising. There bits and pieces of them have come up in all sorts of ways as the news has come out about masks on, off, where, when, can we be together, how are we together, all of those kinds of things, speeding up of the opening of the church, all of those kinds of things. Those conversations have bubbled up even more vigorously over the last few weeks. And I just want to take a moment to sort of remind folks where we've been and what we're looking at and the considerations. For all of this time together, since COVID began, we've been juggling. There's been this huge balancing act that the church leaders, I and the vestry, have weighed as we've tried to move forward. We get information, as most of you do, from the CDC or from Dr. Fauci or from the Tri-County Health Department. Sometimes that stuff is contradictory. The sands seem to shift pretty regularly. How do we deal with that? That's one factor in how we at Good Shepherd are making our decisions. We are receiving counsel from the office of the bishop. They are rarely telling us you have to do this. They are making suggestions, leaving some leeway for different congregations to do different things, depending on their own circumstances. We have to take into account what our building will handle, both in terms of the number of people, but in terms of airflow and all those kinds of things. All of this is with the safety of the congregation upper mind, in our upper mind. But we're listening to the desires from y'all, but we're also hearing anxieties. Some people aren't ready to come back. Other people are really eager to come back. How do we balance those kinds of things? It's a challenge. Related to that is the availability of resources. A lot of folks who might not be willing to come back yet are the people that we may have relied on for so many things before COVID. Electors and altar guild members, ushers, all of those kinds of things. Some of those folks are more eager to get back. Some are still pretty concerned about exposure issues. So and then of course, we're really concerned about taking care of those folks who, for whatever reason, have not been able to be vaccinated, as well as taking care of those folks who have joined us via Zoom and who see that as now one of their chief ways of relating to the congregation. And how do we make sure that any changes that we make ensure that those folks are still as much a part of the congregation as they have been for the last 15 or 16 months. So the image is, we can't turn a light switch and say, okay, well, now this is on or this is off. It's not working that way. It's a little bit more complex. Another image that I've used, and some of you have heard, is this isn't like turning a speedboat. It's like turning an ocean liner, and it's taking a little bit. Now, all of that said, we certainly recognize the great desire for so many of us to be back together, and that's apparent in the Sunday morning gatherings that we have had outside each week. Seems to grow in number. And we had over 50 people last Sunday. So that pace of reopening and how we do that will be part of the vestry's conversation at its meeting this upcoming Tuesday. So we are forging ahead. We are not being controlled by anybody other than what we understand are the best interests of the congregation as a whole. That may be frustrating for some of you. I understand that, and I'm sorry. Others are saying, yes, go slow, go slow. So it's a juggling act, and we're trying to do that as well as we can. So if you've got concerns, please contact me or talk to any of the members of the vestry. We are working on this as a body to make those decisions and to make them, again, in the congregation's best overall interests. And then the last thing I'll say, which is a bit of good news, is that starting next Monday, that being 14th, we will be getting a new patio. As many of you will know, the patio out back, the brick patio that was installed some years ago, has become sort of rolling hills as land is settled and the bricks have settled and all of those kinds of things. And we've learned over the last few months that we've got some water issues, and that's what is causing some of the unevenness in that patio. And we are going to replace the patio, and we will be doing it with stamped concrete. So that will be happening all next week. Should be done by the end of the week. And we will have a nice new patio in the back with a sidewalk that will go from the back parking lot all the way to that patio. So if anybody wants to have access to it, who has mobility issues or things like that, it will be a whole lot easier, and folks won't have to go in and through the building to get there. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll we're talking about how we'll get the shades back up and all of those kinds of things. So we're looking forward to some wonderful structural changes. We're going to get new front doors. All of those kinds of things are still going on while the church is not, the congregation is not here en masse as they have been. Things are moving forward, folks. And as I say, we're doing this as quickly as we can, but as responsibly as we can. And we're more than happy to hear any concerns that you have. So all God's blessings to you. Pray for each other. Pray for your church leaders. And we look forward to seeing you sometime very soon.